The galaxy burned with disorder. Once bustling trade routes, arteries of commerce threading through the stars, now faltered, their glow dimmed by the relentless grip of space pirates. These marauders, once petty thieves scavenging the fringes, had transformed into a scourge. Their ships, angular and predatory, sliced through the dark, striking convoys with surgical precision before melting back into the void. Entire systems teetered on collapse as goods vanished. Markets starved, and whispers of unrest rippled across distant planets. The Galactic Council, a fragile bastion of unity amid the chaos, faced a reckoning. Within the Council's grand chamber, a marvel of translucent energy walls and hovering platforms, representatives from 100 worlds converged. The space thrummed with alien presence. Tentacled Zorblaxians swayed in agitation. Gaseous Vintheri shimmered within containment fields, and multi-eyed Kreltons clicked their mandibles in debate. Above, a synthetic star pulsed rhythmically, bathing the assembly in an ethereal light that danced across scales, exoskeletons, and vaporous forms. The air crackled with urgency as the council chair, a towering being with crystalline scales, raised a clawed fist and brought it down, the impact reverberating like thunder. The chamber fell silent. The pirate crisis had escalated beyond containment. Fleets were overstretched, trade routes hemorrhaged, and patience wore thin. Among the sea of extraterrestrial delegates sat a lone human, Ambassador Elena Voss. Her crisp, dark uniform stood out sharply against the riot of alien hues. Humans were the galaxy's newest arrivals, regarded as untested curiosities by some, reckless upstarts by others. Yet, their knack for turning chaos into opportunity had begun to turn heads. The chair's gaze settled on her, its voice a low rumble. Ambassador Voss, your kind has tamed disorder before. What do you propose? Elena stood, her posture steady, eyes sharp. Pirates plagued our world once. We broke them on seas, then in space. Give us your trade routes to guard. We'll end this threat. In exchange, we claim colony rights and trade access. Murmurs erupted, a wave of disbelief and intrigue sweeping the hall. The idea of entrusting galactic security to these newcomers sparked a storm of contention. Hours churned by, the synthetic star waxing and waning as arguments clashed. Skeptics decried human arrogance. The desperate saw a lifeline. At last, the vote tipped in favor, an audacious gamble on humanity's unproven mettle. The decision thrust them from the sidelines to the forefront, a chance to reshape their place among the stars. As Elena left the chamber, pride swelled within her. Humanity had seized its moment. But doubt lingered, a quiet thorn in her mind. The pirates' ferocity was undeniable, their raids a desperate frenzy. Yet some ships, human ones, emerged unscathed. What stayed their hand? She resolved to unravel the enigma. Far from the Council's luminous spires, a pirate ship skulked through an asteroid field, its patched hull a testament to years of violence. Shadows clung to its jagged frame as it drifted among tumbling rocks. Inside, the captain, a lean figure in scavenged armor, studied a holoscreen displaying human convoy routes. His crew, gaunt and hollow-eyed, shifted uneasily. Another run botched, he growled, voice rough as gravel. But we don't touch the humans. You know the rule. A younger raider, taut with defiance, slammed a fist into the bulkhead. The captain's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing more. The ship powered down, slipping into the dark, leaving the mystery unspoken. What power did human vessels wield that even starving pirates wouldn't dare challenge? Light years away, a human freighter carved its path through the void, its sleek hull catching the gleam of alien suns. The crew worked with practiced calm, scanning sensors, adjusting thrusters, unaware of the wary eyes tracking them from afar. Whatever secret shielded them held firm, a silent deterrent in the vastness. But beyond the pirate's gaze, something older watched. Deep in the galaxy's unseen reaches, an ancient presence stirred, roused by humanity's bold strides. Tied to the stars themselves, it bided its time, waiting for the spark that would ignite forces long dormant. The Orion's bounty carved a solitary path through the infinite black, its sleek hull glinting faintly against a backdrop of distant stars. Captain Marcus Kane sat rigid in his command chair, gaze locked on the viewport. The trade route stretched before them, a vital artery for humanity's expanding reach. But today it bristled with unseen menace. pirates haunted these lanes, their greed tempered by a strange reluctance to strike human vessels. That hesitation had held them back until now. A flicker on the sensor array jolted the bridge from its calm. Lieutenant Zarachen's fingers blurred over her console, her expression tightening as she tracked an anomaly. The signal darted erratically, too fast, too cunning to be random. Kane's chest tightened. Pirates didn't stalk this boldly, not against humans, yet the shadow lingered, circling just beyond clarity. The proximity alarm erupted, drenching the bridge in red. A pirate ship tore from the void, a scarred, jagged beast, its hull a patchwork of salvaged metal and menace. Engines roared as it bore down, weapons bristling with predatory intent. Kane's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and commanding. Shields snapped into place, the Orion's bounty weaving through space as the crew fought to outmaneuver their hunter. But the pirate matched every turn, its pursuit relentless, driven by a fervor that defied reason. Energy blasts ripped across the gap, hammering the shields. The ship groaned, lights stuttering under the onslaught. Kane's jaw clenched. Pirates didn't fight like this, not with such reckless fury. Something had shifted. He issued a curt order. Turrets hummed to life, unleashing a barrage of plasma. The shots streaked wide, but one clipped the pirate's thrusters, sending it tumbling into the dark, a broken husk spiraling out of control. The bridge exhaled as one, but Kane's unease deepened. Pirates feared human ships, or had until this brazen assault. What drove them to abandon that caution? He ordered a scan of the wreckage. The comms hissed to life, projecting a pirate captain's gaunt visage, eyes sunken, yet burning with a defiant glare. His mouth moved in a rasping snarl, soundless and guttural, before the feed died. Silence gripped the crew, heavy with questions. Light years distant, Ambassador Elena Voss stood before a holographic galaxy map, its glowing trade routes painting her face in stark lines. Humanity's rise as galactic protectors had earned them respect, and enemies. The pirates' odd avoidance of human ships had long intrigued her. Now a report of the Orion's bounty's clash shattered that mystery. Her datapad pulsed with data. Pirate attack repelled, no casualties, yet the details gnawed at her. She activated her comm, summoning Admiral Hayes, a grizzled tactician whose mind unraveled the cosmos's thorniest puzzles. His weathered features materialized, eyes sharpening as she briefed him. He rubbed his chin, pondering. The cargo was routine, unless something unseen rode within it. A secret worth dying for. Elena's pulse quickened. Hidden tech? A guarded relic? She resolved to uncover the truth. Aboard the Orion's bounty, Kane descended to the cargo hold, driven by suspicion. If the pirates had targeted them, the answer lay here. Scans revealed only standard supplies, until a technician's shaky voice summoned him deeper. In the hold's dim light, a small, unmarked crate hummed faintly, its presence unlisted, its shell impervious to scans. Kane's gut twisted. He nodded to the technician, who pried it open. Nestled in stasis gel gleamed an orb, energy thrumming within, alien glyphs etched across its surface. The orb flared, casting a holographic figure into the air, its form shimmering, voice a cold whisper from the abyss. It spoke of humanity as bearers of a key, a power to awaken what must remain asleep, coveted by forces willing to kill. Then it faded, leaving the crew stunned, the orb dim once more. Kane stared at it, dread pooling in his core. This was no mere shipment. If the pirates knew its worth, humanity's grip on the stars hung by a thread. Far beyond, in the galaxy's uncharted depths, an ancient entity stirred. Bound to the fabric of space, it had slumbered through millennia, until now. Humanity's audacity had sent tremors through the void, and this orb, this key, ignited its long-dormant awareness. Shadows of forgotten power flexed, their attention fixing on the fragile human fleet. The Orion's bounty glided through the endless black, its engines hushed to a whisper to avoid prying sensors. Captain Marcus Kane stood alone in the cargo hold, his breath fogging faintly in the chill. Before him sat the alien orb, its surface shimmering with an otherworldly sheen. The glyphs carved into it seemed alive, twisting subtly when he wasn't looking directly at them. The holographic warning from their earlier scan lingered in his thoughts, a cryptic message about humanity holding a key to something vast and perilous. But a key to what? Kane reached out, his fingertips grazing the orb's cold exterior. A jolt raced up his arm, not painful but unnerving, like brushing against a live wire. He pulled back, shaking off the sensation. He wasn't a man prone to omens, yet this felt like a dare to the universe. Footsteps echoed behind him, and he turned to see the technician hovering near the hatch, pale and fidgety. "Seal it back up," Kane said, his voice a low rumble. "No one touches it again." The technician bobbed his head, hands unsteady as he wrestled the crate shut. Kane watched, his mind churning. The pirates had been desperate enough to raid them once. If they, or worse, someone else, knew what this was, they'd return with sharper claws. Humanity's fragile grip on these stars could slip, and he'd be damned if he let that happen on his watch. He left the hold, boots clanging against the metal deck as he made for the bridge. The crew moved like shadows, their earlier triumph over the pirates overshadowed by the orb's silent menace. Kane dropped into his command chair, the starfield sprawling beyond the viewport. Answers weren't a luxury, they were a necessity. Far from the Orion's bounty on the bustling human colony of New Terra, Ambassador Elena Voss paced her office. A holographic galaxy map glowed behind her, its flickering lights tracing trade routes marred by pirate attacks. The report from Kane's ship gnawed at her. An alien artifact tucked into a mundane cargo haul? It was too convenient, too deliberate. She stopped mid-step, her sharp eyes narrowing. What if it wasn't smuggled at all? What if it was a lure? A test of humanity's mettle? Or a trigger for something darker? She tapped her comm, her voice slicing through the quiet. "Get me a secure line to Admiral Hayes," she said, "and pull every cargo manifest from the last month. I want the source of that crate." Her aide nodded and slipped away. Elena turned back to the map, her fingers tracing the paths where shadows hunted. If this orb unlocked something, power, ruin, or both, humanity would either wield it or break it. There was no third option. Aboard the Orion's bounty, the stillness shattered as alarms tore through the ship. Kane snapped upright, the bridge flooding with crimson light. Lieutenant Chen's fingers danced across her console, her face taut. "Multiple contacts," she said, voice clipped. "Closing fast. Not pirates. Something else." Kane's heart kicked against his ribs. "Show me." The viewport flickered, revealing a cluster of sleek, obsidian ships, sharp-edged and light-swallowing, like predators carved from the void. They wove together with chilling grace, tightening around the Orion's bounty like a noose. "No database match," Chen added, her tone edging toward fear. Kane's thoughts raced. These weren't scavengers, they were hunters, and the orb's warning burned brighter in his memory. Others crave it, and they will kill to possess it. He gripped the armrests, his voice steady. "Battle stations, shields up, weapons hot." The crew sprang into motion, but the alien ships hung back, their silence more threatening than any volley. Then a transmission cut through, a voice metallic and frigid. "Surrender the artifact, humans, or be erased." Kane's teeth ground together. Outgunned and surrounded, surrender was a coward's play, but survival demanded cunning. He shot a glance at Chen, who shook her head. No backup in range. "Stall them," he murmured. "Buy us time." Chen opened a channel, her voice calm despite the odds. "This is the Orion's bounty. We don't know what you're talking about." A beat of silence, then the voice returned, dripping with scorn. "Lies. The key is aboard. Deliver it or perish." Kane's mind spun, latching onto an old human trick, misdirection. He leaned closer to Chen, keeping his voice low. "Rig a decoy. Dummy crate, tracker inside. Make it convincing." She nodded, and the crew scrambled, jury-rigging a crate to pulse like the orb. Kane watched the alien ships, their weapon ports flaring with deadly intent. "Decoys set," Chen whispered. "Jettison it," Kane said. The crate launched, spinning into the void. The alien fleet paused, then surged toward it, their formation fracturing. Kane seized the moment. "Full thrust, now!" The Orion's bounty roared to life, engines blazing as it tore free of the trap. The hunters wavered, distracted by the decoy. It wasn't much, but it was enough. As the ship slipped into the dark, Kane wiped sweat from his brow. They dodged annihilation, for the moment. Back on New Terra, Elena's comm buzzed. Admiral Hayes's weathered face filled the screen, his eyes hard. "Ambassador," he said, That crate wasn't ours, slipped into the manifest during a stop at Zorblack's Prime. Elena's pulse quickened. By who? No clue, Hayes replied. But the Zorblaxians are spooked. Old legends about a lost power resurfacing. They're scared, Elena. Pieces clicked into place. The orb, the pirate's odd restraint, the alien hunters. Something ancient was waking and humanity was caught in its gaze. She met Hayes's stare, her voice iron. We need to know what this key opens. Now. I'll send a task force, he said, but this could be war, bigger than we're ready for. Then we get ready, Elena shot back. Humans don't bow. In the galaxy's uncharted depths, an ancient presence quivered, its essence threading through the void. The key's signal pulsed louder, nearer. Soon, it would hold the means to bend the stars or break them entirely. The Orion's bounty hung in the void, its hull scarred from the narrow escape in Chapter 3. Captain Marcus Kane stood in the cargo hold, eyes locked on the alien orb. Encased in a containment field, its glyphs pulsed faintly, a rhythm that felt alive, taunting. The crew lingered behind him, their faces etched with exhaustion and unease. Kane's jaw tightened. They needed answers, now. He gestured to the science officer, who adjusted the scanner with trembling hands. The beam struck the orb, and its surface erupted in light, glyphs blazing. The air thickened, humming with energy, as a holographic star map materialized, an ancient web of stars with one point glowing fiercely. Kane leaned closer, tracing the coordinates as they fed into the ship's navigation system. The bright point sat unnervingly close to New Terra. A tremor shook the ship, alarms piercing the silence. The containment field flickered and the orb's light dimmed as if it had exhausted itself. Kane's pulse quickened. The orb hadn't just revealed a clue, it had sent a signal. On New Terra, Elena Voss navigated the Zorblaxian district's shadowed alleys, her hood shielding her from curious eyes. The marketplace thrummed with alien life, tentacles bartering, scales glinting under dim lights. Her contact waited near a stall piled with exotic spices, its iridescent form hunched and restless. Multiple eyes scanned the crowd as she approached. She slipped into the alcove beside it, her presence a silent demand. The Zorblaxian's tentacles quivered, producing a small, ornate device. With a flick, a hologram shimmered into view, the orb, joined by other artifacts, circling a massive, ominous gateway. The scholar pointed, its voice a hiss. Keys to the sleeper. Elena's mind raced. The sleeper, an entity, a machine, a myth. The hologram faded as the Zorblaxian retreated into the throng, leaving her with a chilling certainty. The orb was part of something vast and dangerous. Aboard the Orion's bounty, the bridge erupted in chaos. Proximity alarms wailed, and the viewport revealed sleek, obsidian ships slicing through space, the alien hunters relentless. Kane's fists clenched as Lieutenant Chen's hands danced over her console, plotting their pursuer's course. The hunters had locked onto the orb's signal, their intent clear. Kane scanned the navigation chart, eyes narrowing on a nearby asteroid field, a chaotic swirl of rock and dust. Risky, but their only chance. He seized the controls, steering the ship into the maelstrom. Asteroids loomed, jagged and unforgiving, their shadows swallowing the Orion's bounty whole. The hull shuddered as debris grazed the shields, each impact a test of the ship's resilience. Kane's knuckles whitened, guiding them through the field with precision born of desperation. The hunters followed, weaving with eerie grace, closing the gap. Ahead, two massive asteroids framed a narrow passage. Kane gunned the engines, the ship slipping through as sparks flew from the hull. The hunters balked, their larger vessels unable to pursue. Silence fell, heavy and fleeting. Chen's shoulders slumped in relief, but Kane's gaze remained fixed ahead. They'd survived, for now. In her New Terra office, Elena stood before a galactic map, its holographic glow casting sharp lines across her face. The coordinates from Kane's transmission pulsed near the colony, a threat lurking in humanity's backyard. Her comm buzzed, Admiral Hayes' voice crackling through. Task force is moving. This sleeper. It's big, Elena. Her eyes steeled. She ended the call, resolve hardening. Whatever the sleeper was, humanity would meet it head-on. Deep in the galaxy's uncharted reaches, an ancient presence stirred. The orb's signal rippled through the void, tugging at its slumber. The sleeper shifted, its awakening imminent, a force poised to reshape the stars. The Orion's bounty adjusted course, the glowing coordinates locked in. Kane stared at the viewport, the weight of the orb and its secrets pressing against him. Near New Terra, the truth waited, and with it, a reckoning. The Orion's bounty drifted in the emptiness of space, its hull bearing the scars of a harrowing escape from earlier encounters. Captain Marcus Kane stood alone in the cargo hold, his gaze fixed on the alien orb. Encased within a shimmering containment field, its surface flickered with glyphs that pulsed like a heartbeat, subtle yet insistent. The crew hovered at the edges of the room, their shadowed figures tense with fatigue and apprehension. Kane's jaw clenched as he motioned to the science officer. The man's hands shook as he adjusted a scanner, its beam slicing through the dimness to strike the orb. Instantly, the artifact flared, glyphs igniting in a cascade of light. The air grew heavy, buzzing with unseen energy, as a holographic star map unfurled before them, an intricate lattice of celestial points. One star blazed brighter than the rest, its coordinates streaming into the ship's navigation system. Kane's breath caught as he recognized its proximity to New Terra, humanity's fragile foothold in the cosmos. Before he could process the revelation, the ship trembled, alarms shrieking through the hold. The containment field wavered, and the orb's glow faded as if it had spent its strength. Kane's pulse hammered. That flare wasn't just a message, it was a beacon. On New Terra, Ambassador Elena Voss moved through the Zorblaxian district's labyrinthine alleys, her hood drawn tight against prying gazes. The marketplace pulsed with alien activity, tentacles haggling over wares, scales catching the faint glow of overhead lamps. Her destination was a cluttered stall stacked with shimmering spices, where an iridescent figure waited, its multiple eyes darting nervously. She slipped into the shadowed space beside it, her silence a command. The Zorblaxian's tentacles twitched, revealing a small, intricately carved device. With a deft motion, it activated, projecting a hologram. The orb, alongside other relics, orbiting a colossal, foreboding structure, a gateway shrouded in darkness. One tentacle gestured sharply, its hiss barely audible. Elena's mind raced as the image dissolved and the creature melted back into the crowd. The Sleeper. A legend whispered across species, now taking shape as something tangible and perilous. Aboard the Orion's bounty, chaos engulfed the bridge. Proximity alarms screamed, and the viewport framed a chilling sight. Sleek, obsidian ships cutting through the void, their forms predatory and unrelenting. The alien hunters had tracked the orb's signal, their pursuit unyielding. Kane's fists tightened as Lieutenant Chen worked the console, her fingers a blur plotting the enemy's trajectory. The hunters were closing fast. Kane's eyes flicked to the navigation chart, settling on a nearby asteroid field, a churning expanse of rock and debris. A gamble, but their only shield. He gripped the controls, banking the ship hard into the field. Asteroids loomed like silent titans, their jagged edges grazing the shields with a screech of metal. The hull groaned under each collision, the ship weaving through the chaos with desperate precision. Behind them, the hunters followed, their movements fluid and uncanny, narrowing the distance. Ahead, two massive asteroids formed a tight corridor, a sliver of salvation. Kane pushed the engines to their limit, the Orion's bounty threading the gap as sparks erupted from the hull. The hunters hesitated, their bulk too cumbersome for the passage, and fell behind. The bridge stilled, the crew's ragged breaths breaking the silence. Chen's frame relaxed slightly, but Kane's stare remained locked forward. Survival was temporary. In her office on New Terra, Elena stood before a sprawling galactic map, its holographic light carving stark shadows across her features. The coordinates Kane had relayed glowed ominously near the colony, a danger lurking too close to home. Her comm crackled, Admiral Hayes' voice cutting through the quiet. The task force was mobilizing, the Sleeper's shadow growing. She severed the connection, her resolve crystallizing. Humanity would face this unknown, whatever it was. Far beyond charted space, something ancient roused. The orb's signal rippled outward, a thread pulling at the fabric of dormancy. The Sleeper stirred, its presence vast and inevitable, poised to alter the galaxy's fragile balance. The Orion's bounty shifted course, locked onto the glowing coordinates. Kane stood at the viewport, the orb's weight a silent burden. Near New Terra, answers loomed, along with a confrontation that would demand everything humanity had left to give. Me. The Orion's bounty floated silently in the vastness of space, its battered hull a testament to recent battles. Inside the cargo hold, Captain Marcus Kane stood motionless, eyes locked on the alien orb. Encased in a flickering containment field, its surface shimmered with glyphs that pulsed rhythmically, faint but persistent. Around him, the crew lingered near the walls, their weary silhouettes taut with unease. Kane gestured sharply to the science officer, whose trembling hands directed a scanner's beam onto the orb. The artifact erupted in light, glyphs flaring brilliantly. A thick hum filled the air as a holographic star map materialized, a complex web of stars and lines. One star burned brighter, its coordinates flooding the ship's navigation system. Kane's chest tightened. It was perilously close to New Terra, humanity's vulnerable outpost. Before he could react, the ship shuddered violently, alarms piercing the silence. The containment field flickered, the orb dimming as if exhausted. Kane's pulse surged. That burst wasn't just data, it was a summons. On New Terra, Ambassador Alina Voss navigated the Zorblaxian district's winding streets, her hooded figure blending into the shadows. The marketplace buzzed with alien life, tentacles bartering, scales glinting under dim lights. She approached a cluttered stall piled with glowing spices, where an iridescent Zorblaxian waited, its many eyes twitching. Slipping beside it, she offered no words, her presence enough. The creature's tentacles quivered, unveiling a small, ornate device. With a swift motion, it activated, casting a hologram. The orb, joined by other relics, circling a massive, ominous structure, a gateway cloaked in shadow. A tentacle slashed the air, its hiss faint but urgent. The image vanished, and the Zorblaxian slipped away into the throng. Elena's thoughts raced. The sleeper, a myth across species, now loomed as a real, looming threat. Aboard the Orion's bounty, the bridge descended into chaos. Alarms wailed, and the viewport revealed sleek, black ships slicing through space, their forms sleek and menacing. The alien hunters had locked onto the orb's signal, their pursuit relentless. Kane's knuckles whitened as Lieutenant Chen hammered at the console, mapping the enemy's approach. They were gaining. Kane's gaze darted to the navigation chart, fixing on a nearby asteroid field, a chaotic swirl of rock and ruin. A risky move, but their only chance. He seized the controls, wrenching the ship into the field. Towering asteroids drifted perilously close, their edges scraping the shields with a grating howl. The hull creaked under the strain, the ship darting through the maze with frantic agility. The hunters trailed, their movements eerily smooth, closing in. Ahead, 2 colossal asteroids framed a narrow passage, a fleeting hope. Kane slammed the engines to full power, the Orion's bounty slipping through as sparks sprayed from the hull. The hunters faltered, their larger frames unable to follow, and lagged behind. The bridge fell quiet, the crew's heavy breathing the only sound. Chen's shoulders eased, but Kane's eyes stayed fixed ahead. This respite wouldn't last. In her New Terra office, Elena faced a sprawling galactic map, its glow casting sharp lines across her face. The coordinates from Kane pulsed near the colony, a threat too near to ignore. Her comm buzzed, Admiral Hayes' voice crackling through, reporting the task force's deployment against the sleeper's growing shadow. She cut the line, her determination hardening. Humanity would confront this enigma head-on. Deep in uncharted space, something primordial awakened. The orb's signal spread like a ripple, tugging at a long, dormant force. The sleeper shifted, its immense presence stirring, ready to reshape the galaxy's delicate equilibrium. The Orion's bounty adjusted its trajectory, locked on the glowing coordinates. Kane lingered at the viewport, the orb's mystery a heavy load. Near New Terra, revelations awaited, along with a clash that would test humanity's endurance to its core. The Orion's bounty drifted silently in the black, its hull bearing the scars of a harrowing escape weeks prior. Captain Marcus Kane stood motionless in the cargo hold, his gaze fixed on the alien orb. Encased in a shimmering containment field, its surface pulsed with faint, rhythmic glyphs, like a heartbeat mocking their ignorance. The crew hovered behind him, their shadowed faces taut with fatigue and dread. Kane's jaw clenched, resolve hardening. Time for answers was running out. With a sharp gesture, he signaled the science officer. The officer's hands shook as they adjusted the scanner, its beam slicing into the orb. Light exploded from its surface, glyphs flaring brilliantly. The air grew dense, vibrating with unseen energy, and a holographic star map flickered into existence, an intricate lattice of stars, one point blazing brighter than the rest. Kane stepped closer, fingers tracing the coordinates as they streamed into the ship's navigation system. The glowing dot hovered perilously near New Terra. A sudden jolt rocked the ship, alarms shrieking through the hold. The containment field wavered, the orb's glow dimming as if spent. Kane's pulse hammered. That wasn't just a revelation. It was a transmission. Half a galaxy away, on New Terra, Elena Voss moved through the Zorblaxian district's labyrinthine alleys. Her hood concealed her features from the bustling alien crowd, tentacles haggling over wares, scales catching the faint glow of overhead lamps. She reached a stall stacked with shimmering spices, where her contact lingered, its iridescent form hunched and restless. Its multitude of eyes darted across the throng as she slipped beside it. Without a word, the Zorblaxian's tentacles twitched, unveiling a small, ornate device. A flick of its limbs summoned a hologram, the orb, alongside other artifacts, orbiting a colossal shadowy gateway. Its claw tapped the image, a low hiss escaping. Elena's breath caught. The Sleeper, a name heavy with enigma. The vision dissolved as the creature melted back into the crowd, leaving her with a gnawing realization. The orb was a fragment of something immense and perilous. Aboard the Orion's Bounty, chaos engulfed the bridge. Proximity alarms screamed, and the viewport framed a chilling sight. Sleek, obsidian ships tearing through the void. The alien hunters had returned, drawn by the orb's signal. Kane's fists tightened as Lieutenant Chen's fingers flew across her console, tracking the enemy's approach. The hunters were closing fast. His eyes flicked to the navigation chart, settling on a nearby asteroid field, a swirling chaos of rock and dust. A gamble, but their only shot. Kane gripped the controls, wrenching the ship toward the field. Asteroids loomed ahead, jagged and relentless, their shadows consuming the vessel. The hull groaned as debris battered the shields, each collision pushing the ship's limits. Kane's grip tightened, maneuvering through the maelstrom with desperate precision. The hunters pursued, their ships gliding with unnerving agility, narrowing the distance. Ahead, two massive asteroids formed a tight gauntlet. Kane thrust the engines to their brink, the Orion's Bounty scraping through, sparks erupting from the hull. The hunters hesitated, their bulk unable to navigate the passage, and fell behind. The bridge stilled, tension hanging thick in the air. Chen exhaled shakily, but Kane's stare remained forward. Survival was temporary. They weren't out yet. On New Terra, Elena stood before a sprawling galactic map, its holographic light carving stark lines across her face. The coordinates from Kane's message pulsed near the colony, a danger lurking too close to home. Her comm vibrated, Admiral Hayes' voice cutting through static with clipped urgency. The task force was mobilizing. The Sleeper was no small threat. She silenced the device, her expression hardening. Humanity wouldn't falter, not now. Far beyond charted space, something ancient stirred. The orb's signal rippled through the void, a thread pulling at its dormant core. The Sleeper twitched, its awakening edging closer, a force vast enough to bend the galaxy to its will. The Orion's Bounty realigned its course, the coordinates locked in. Kane stared into the viewport, the orb's weight and its mysteries bearing down on him. Near New Terra, answers awaited, and with them, a confrontation that would define their fate. The Orion's Bounty drifted in the shadow of an ancient structure, a massive ring of stone and metal floating silently in the void near New Terra. Its surface bore glyphs that echoed those on the orb, shimmering faintly as if alive with secrets older than the stars. Captain Marcus Kane stood rigid on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the viewport. A chill prickled his skin, not from the cold of space, but from the weight of what loomed before them. This was no mere ruin. It was a lock, and the orb cradled in their hold was its key. The stillness shattered as Lieutenant Chen's hands tightened on her console, her sharp intake of breath signaling trouble. Beyond the structure, the alien hunters emerged from the darkness, their obsidian ships cutting through the vacuum like blades. Kane's jaw tightened. They had tracked the orb, intent on breaking the seal and unleashing the sleeper, an entity whose awakening promised chaos beyond imagining. Laser fire erupted, bathing the void in streaks of crimson and gold. The Orion's bounty rocked under the assault, shields flaring as they absorbed the brunt of the hunter's barrage. Sparks showered the bridge, consoles flickering, but Kane seized the helm, guiding the ship into a daring dive beneath the structure's arch. Its ancient bulk offered fleeting shelter as the crew returned fire, turrets spitting defiance into the swarm of enemy vessels. On New Terra's surface, Ambassador Elena Voss stood amidst a swirl of holographic archives, ancient texts, and Zorblaxian records coalescing before her. Her pulse quickened as fragments of lore aligned into a stark truth. The orbs were more than relics, they were guardians, keys to a network that kept the sleeper dormant. Yet they held a hidden edge. Tampering triggered a devastating defense, a failsafe woven into their design. Her hands trembled as she transmitted the revelation to Kane, the message stark and urgent. The orb was both shield and sword. Aboard the Orion's bounty, chaos reigned. Alarms wailed, their shrill cries drowning out the thrum of straining engines. The hunters pressed their attack, weaving through the structure's spires with predatory grace, their numbers overwhelming. Kane's gaze darted to the comm panel as Elena's warning blinked into view. His breath hitched. The orb could end this, but the risk gnawed at him. The ship shuddered again, a glancing blow shearing away a chunk of hull plating. Time was slipping through their fingers. Kane's resolve hardened, a flinty edge settling into his features. He turned to the science officer, whose hands hovered uncertainly over the orb's containment unit, its surface pulsing with restrained power. "Do it," Kane commanded, his voice low but unyielding. The officer's eyes widened, a flicker of doubt crossing his face, but Kane's steady stare silenced any protest. With a hesitant nod, he initiated the sequence. The orb blazed to life, its glyphs igniting in a cascade of blinding white. A shockwave tore outward, a silent explosion of energy that swept through space like a tidal surge. The hunter's ships staggered, caught in the pulse's grip. Their sleek forms convulsed, systems frying as engines died and weapons fell silent. One by one they drifted aimlessly, dark husks against the starry expanse, their threat extinguished in an instant. The battlefield grew still, the quiet heavy with the aftershock of unleashed power. Kane released a slow breath, tension bleeding from his frame, but the mission pressed on. He piloted the Orion's bounty toward the structure's core, where a pedestal stood, its hollowed center a perfect match for the orb. Retrieving the artifact from its cradle, he felt its warmth seep through his gloves, a living pulse that spoke of purpose. With a reverent motion, he set it into place. The structure responded instantly, glyphs flaring with vibrant light as a deep hum resonated through the void. A wave of serenity radiated outward, the seal on the sleeper reinforced, its slumber secured. In the distance, pirate ships lingered, their silhouettes faint against the starfield. Their crews watched in silence, witnesses to the orb's wrath and the hunter's ruin. Memories stirred among them, tales of a raid gone wrong, a human vessel that had erupted in vengeance when its cargo was breached, leaving their kin shattered and adrift. They had learned then what the orb could do, and now they saw it again, wielded by hands unafraid. As one, their ships turned, slipping back into the shadows, a silent pact renewed. Human supplies were untouchable, a line not worth crossing. On New Terra, Elena faced the Galactic Council, the chamber hushed as she unveiled the sleeper's tale. Her words painted a picture of ancient guardians and human resolve, of orbs that held the galaxy's fate in balance. The counselors, Zorblaxians with their crystalline eyes, Vinthari with their shimmering hides, leaned forward, awe replacing their usual reserve. Humanity had stood as sentinels, their courage a bulwark against annihilation, and the galaxy owed them a debt unspoken. In the aftermath, the pirates' choice crystallized. That first disastrous raid had taught them terror. The orbs unleashed fury, a specter they couldn't shake. Starvation became their burden, a lesser evil than tempting that power again. Yet now, having seen humanity's stand, a thread of respect wove into their fear, a recognition of those who guarded the stars. Kane lingered on the Orion's Bounty's bridge, the structure's glow fading behind them as they charted a course home. The galaxy stretched out, vast and unyielding, but he felt its pulse shift. Humanity had carved its place not with force, but with a quiet strength that echoed beyond the void. The pirates would steer clear, their hunger a testament to the lesson learned. Some lines were drawn not in sand, but in starlight.